Hi everyone, I'm here with Georgina. Georgina, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, thank you for having me. I'm Georgina and I'm currently a third year medical student at the University of Nottingham. I started medical school in 2021 and it's been a very interesting journey. But speaking from someone who's 3 years into medical school, I can honestly say that I'm really enjoying it. I've made some amazing friends and learned how to live independently in a new city. And most importantly, I've developed myself as a person. And I think the Georgina starting university is a different Georgina to now. And it's been a great learning experience so far.
Yeah, definitely. I feel like university is a very formative experience, isn't it? You change
Yeah.
a lot at university. I definitely feel like I've changed a lot since I started university. I think it's definitely helped me broaden my horizons and be introduced to things that I never would have been had I not come
Mhm.
to medical school. So yeah, it's been really great. I mean, me and Georgina do go to the same medical school, so
Yeah.
we have a lot of similar experiences, and you'll see that a little bit when we talk a bit more about why you're being interviewed for the podcast today. So moving on to that, you completed a dissertation as Nottingham medics do in their third year. So, do you want to tell us a little bit more about your dissertation and what it involved?
Yeah, so as Asia's just said, third year of medical school at Nottingham looks a bit different than in other medical schools because we work on a dissertation in the first half of third year, and the project that you do varies between each student. So some students can do a more lab-based project, and some can do qualitative, such as doing interviews and focus groups, or it can be like extended literature reviews or systematic reviews. My project was actually an extended literature review with systematic methodology, and the question was understanding the autistic medical student. When first approaching this topic, my supervisor and I both knew that there wasn't much research already out there into the experiences of autistic medical students. And as a little sneak peek, this is exactly what we ended up finding. I screened 8 different databases and ended up with 661 papers to screen. And after screening with the relevant inclusion and exclusion criteria, I ended up with just 4 papers that were relevant to the topic. At this stage, I was quite worried about writing a whole paper with the results of only 4 papers because it didn't seem like a lot. But as a part of my grade literature, I also analysed the websites of 7 medical schools in the UK to see what disability support is currently being offered, what autism specific support is being offered, and whether there's any information about autistic support specific to medical students. What I found was that medical schools varied a lot with the autism specific support offered. For example, some universities, I couldn't find any autism specific information on the website, but other universities, such as our university, does help with autism screening and also does have autism support networks. So there was a great variation. Um, Interestingly, there was only one paper with the population of autistic medical students only, which was included as part of the 4 papers that I included in my paper. So, after assessing all of these papers, 4 main themes stood out to me, which were transition, well-being, communication, and empathy. And I found that social connections and the presence of relatable individuals are linked to the subjective well-being of autistic medical students. And I also found that autistic medical students felt that there was a lack of autistic role models in medical school, and it was quite hard for them to transition into university as well. For example, with a big campus like ours, it can feel quite overwhelming to navigate through. But overall, I think if there was one thing that I had to pick out that I thought was quite the most interesting was that some autistic medical students felt the need to conceal their autistic traits to appear more professional, which can lead to mental health problems within medical school. It was quite interesting, and I really enjoyed the process.
No, it just sounds really interesting, and I suppose it's a shame that there are so few papers kind of detailing the experience of autistic medical students and I suppose medical students with any neurodivergence as well. I suppose we do need to do more research about that. I do wonder, and I'm not sure if you'll have the answer to this. So, obviously, we do have, do you say there's an autistic students network at Nottingham? Is it?
Yeah, there's an autistic support network. I think it's a group of students where they meet up on a regular basis and they can talk about their experiences or for example, it can just be a social event as well, just to feel a bit more included and also help with like building that social network.
Yeah, so I think initiatives like that are really good because I don't know, like I said, I don't know the ins and outs at Nottingham or other universities, but I think a potential barrier as well is that I mean, there's such delays in people getting diagnosed, not just with autism, but also with ADHD, other mental health conditions, because there's such a massive backlog with the NHS at the moment. So it's taking people years and years and years to get these diagnoses, which means that people who really feel like they could benefit from support for autistic students may not be able to access it. So they may not be able to access the support plans that they need, and the different things that they need without a referral. And that can also be on the part of GPs and other practitioners. If they don't feel as though someone needs a referral, they won't refer them. And universities actually, most of them probably require that referral letter in order to enter them into the different support that they need. So I suppose that's something that broadly we have to think about a bit more, because it can mean a lot of students are falling through the cracks, unfortunately, because they just might not be able to access the support, not only in the university, but externally too, because a lot of people are waiting a really long time for treatment, for help, for support, and not everyone can afford to go privately to get the diagnosis that they need.
Yeah, I completely agree with that.
Okay, so sounds like you had a really great time researching your dissertation, which is great. I know that I also had a great time with mine too. And I think at Nottingham it is a really good experience to be able to have it integrated into the curriculum. So you don't have to take a year out or do something else or do a master's or anything. You can get an extra degree within the 5 years, although that does come at the cost of your holiday time. But I suppose it's just what you make out of it. So, what are your future plans for your dissertation?
Well, based on my dissertation findings, I think one thing that's quite clear is that a lot of research needs to be done into the experiences of autistic medical students, and especially with a much larger sample size as well to get a more representative finding. From my dissertation, I was able to make a few recommendations for medical schools. And the first recommendation was having pre allocation of personal tutors with autistic students before they enter medical school, because I think this allows a reliable support system to be made and also introduces a familiar face to make that transition into medical school less overwhelming. I think it's also important for students to be encouraged to disclose their diagnosis through the creation of autistic support networks, as mentioned before. This network, again, already exists at the University of Nottingham, but there was a lot of variation in other medical schools as to whether this was offered. And I think these support networks can essentially reduce feelings of loneliness and improve mental health through communication and forming social bonds. Also, I think the facilitation of training programs for medical school staff and students could involve teaching on the use of identity first language. So, currently, it's mandatory for all Nottingham Medical School students to complete the EDI training at the start of every academic year, but this training is not specific to the needs of autistic peers. So, I think that is potentially something that could be looked into. And again, from the results of my review, it's also quite obvious that some autistic medical students find it hard to be motivated in medical school because there's a lack of autistic role models. And I think this is why it's important to create an autistic doctors alumni page to show examples of role models who have successfully navigated through similar challenges in their professional journey. And overall, as part of this project, I'm currently in the process of making a toolkit for medical school staff on how best to support autistic students. And this package includes advice on how to support autistic students with group work and planning revision. And I'm also in the process of finding a way to add a forum to this toolkit because I think it's important for staff to be given the opportunity to ask questions and seek advice anonymously. So I think there's a lot of change that can be made within the medical education environment to support the needs of autistic students, and I'm quite excited to help to make a positive change.
No, it sounds great. And yeah, like you said, it sounds like there is a lot of work to be done to better support our students. And I suppose when it comes to role models, creating an environment where people feel comfortable to share their diagnosis and to share their experiences and not have to mask themselves or hide themselves is a better way to get role models to reveal themselves, because there very well could be professors, doctors in the university who are autistic but don't feel as though they can share that diagnosis because of a culture that we have created where people may not feel as comfortable to do that. So I think just even talking about it goes part of the way to helping that and improving things for our students, because that's the main thing that we do want to do. We want to make it better for students, and empowering staff and students with the ability to do that with better training and better resources is really, really good. So it sounds like some fantastic work that you're doing. So outside of your dissertation, what other extracurricular activities are you involved in?
So I'm currently the president of the Welfare Hub, which is a student-led group that aims to improve the mental health of medical students through creating content on Instagram. And this content can include things like charity shout-outs, a day in the life blog, self-care top tips, and there's a lot of content that's made weekly, and there's daily like publications that are made just to help medical students with their mental health. And I've also been able to signpost students to different services that are available to them, because sometimes students can pop up in the DMs with any advice or questions about where to go to. And it's really, really, I think it's a positive experience to be able to contribute to helping them. I'm also a peer mentor, and I think a key learning point that I've taken away from working with first year medical students is to be positive and motivating. I've seen that your own mood and how motivated you are can have a direct impact on their motivation levels and how engaged the students are with you. So even if it's a simple smile, that can be so powerful. I'm also the General Secretary for Mind Matters, which is a society dedicated to psychiatry and mental health. And as the General Secretary, I've helped to coordinate and facilitate the Society's activities and organise committee meetings. This year, we've organised a lot of social events and, of course, our annual mental health workshop, which has been very successful in the past. Um, and I'm also a Sutton Trust alumni, and through the Opportunity Bursary Programme sponsored by JP Morgan, I've had the fantastic opportunity to do some volunteering work in a district hospital in India, and also run English workshops in a local primary school. So overall, it's been a fantastic experience, and I'm quite excited to take part in more experiences in the future to contribute to the medical school environment and also help with mental health.
And that all sounds really fantastic, really interesting. I think you're so right when you say about being positive and being a motivating role model, because I definitely think at medical school you can fall into the trap of being really negative all of the
Mm.
time, because I mean, misery loves company, doesn't it? So you feel united in the fact that you can all complain together about what's going badly. And don't get me wrong, I love a moan as much as the next person, but I think when you're constantly complaining and you're constantly feeling down about things, it does affect your mood, and you will constantly feel negative and down about things. And it will be hard to have a positive outlook if you're constantly engaging and constantly saying negative things. And that's not to say that, if you do experience something that's a bit rubbish, that you can't talk about it, but actively seeking out and making all your conversations about what's going wrong, or how you don't feel prepared, or how you don't feel this, or how you don't feel that, can make you feel really down and really low. And instead, you should try to positively affirm yourself and say, you know what, I am at medical school. I can do this. I'm going to do this. I'm doing this well, and this well. And just be a bit more positive. I think we could all be a bit more positive. I think sometimes medics are a bit too self deprecating, because we're all very intelligent people, whether we like to admit it or not, even if it doesn't feel that way sometimes. um, we all are, and we all deserve to kind of uplift ourselves and,
Mm.
yeah, just feel good and be good. And I suppose by being a positive role model, that's a great way to do that. So you mentioned that over the Easter holidays, you're going to be going to India to teach English. So do you want to explain a little bit more about that and how that kind of came to be?
So as part of the Sutton Trust program, so the Sutton Trust program, I first got introduced to them when I was applying for summer schools, actually for medical school. So summer schools is part of like a widening participation program to give a week of learning to potential students who are interested in studying medicine, and it involves a week staying at the university that you apply to and experience like the lectures, meet people who have a similar interest to you, and also meet some amazing student ambassadors who helped me with my medical school application. So I think that program was quite helpful. But then after this program, I've done some volunteering work with them. So I've helped to deliver workshops in local secondary schools and colleges in order to promote the program and to get more people involved. And as part of this, they had this opportunity bursary available. So this bursary gives students a maximum of £5,000 in order to do a research project that they're interested in. It not exactly a research project, it can also be like a volunteering experience. So I was able to make my own project. So I set out a kind of layout of a volunteering program. So I knew from the start that I wanted to teach something, which then I decided obviously to be teaching English. But then I also wanted, again, to link it into medical schools, to go abroad and maybe do some volunteering work in hospitals abroad, just to get the feel of how the NHS varies to different organisations outside of the UK. So I was able to create a project to set out these two volunteering experiences. So I chose India because I think it's um, quite different to the UK, and I think I would be able to get a good kind of experience on how things differ in India. So I applied and we had an interview. It was quite a competitive process. I think there were many applications and only 70 people got shortlisted for the interview. But I got notified a few months ago that I was successful for the program, and I'm quite excited to actually carry that plan and make it happen in real life.
Yeah, sounds great. I can't wait to see how you get on. And finally, what advice would you give to students undertaking a degree whilst in medical school, whether that be an intercalation or an integrated degree like we have at Nottingham?
So I think the first top tip that I would give is making sure you manage your time effectively and create a schedule to balance your coursework with your medical degree. We had 3 modules running on the side of our dissertation, which made it really easy to fall behind on one or the other. And in fact, by Christmas, I wasn't even halfway of where I expected myself to be with my dissertation, which made the whole process quite stressful. I think the second tip that I would give is to set realistic goals. It's quite hard when writing a dissertation to know exactly how long each section will take you to write. And I think it's helpful to set gaps in your weekly timetable as dedicated time for you to catch up on work if you're starting to fall behind. I think the third tip I'd give is to seek support. This can be academic help, such as not being afraid to ask your supervisor when you're stuck or need advice. But equally, it's important to seek help if you feel like you're struggling or you feel overwhelmed. And I think there's a lot of mental health support available to students at the University of Nottingham, one of which includes the Welfare Hub Society that I'm part of, as we mentioned before. There's also the university's counselling services, personal tutors, course reps, or the MedSoc support team. So there's a lot of services that are available if you do need it. Also, I think another tip is to use the resources that are available to you. The University of Nottingham Library Services have some fantastic resources to help you get started with a dissertation, which can be in the forms of like videos and blogs. As we weren't given any formal teaching on how to conduct a systematic review, I was able to receive one-to-one help from the university's librarian and how to search databases using Boolean operators, which was really overwhelming to me at the start. But again, it was quite helpful to get that one to one personal support. My final top tip would be to stay motivated and look after yourself. With an extra degree on top of the medical degree, it's quite easy to stop doing your hobbies because of the amount of work that needs to be completed. And this is where planning and timetabling is key. And personally, for me, outside of university, I enjoy things like running and Bollywood dancing. And I found maintaining these were a great way to de stress after a busy day. I think overall, I just wanted to say the best of luck to everyone undertaking another degree. And you've got this.
Yeah, you do all have this. So whether you're undertaking another degree, whether you're only doing a medical degree, whether you're not even doing medicine and you're just listening to this because you're interested, you have got this regardless of what you're doing at the moment. Education, work, whatever, you've got this. You can do it. That's our positive affirmation for the day. So, Georgina, it's been lovely to speak to you. How can listeners find you if they want to get in touch?
They can find me through LinkedIn, or there's also the Welfare Hub's Instagram page. If you would like to get in contact, please do send us a DM, and that page is monitored frequently on a daily basis. So, yeah, and also got my university's email address as well.
Okay, great. So I can link all that in the description if you do want to get in touch with Georgina. But thank you so much for coming on the podcast.
Thank you for having me. It's been fantastic.